If you can't step away from the business because you feel like the people are going to burn it to the ground, or, my husband's going to let one of our children fall to pieces, then I'm probably not surrounding myself with the right people. If we could look beyond what is on paper. And as leaders, I think it's so ingrained in us. And like, have they been a controller? Have they been a CFO? Have they been in the industry for 10 years? Have they, you know, received their CPA license? Is that person more qualified than maybe me, who has had to like go through true grit and like real life experience to get the same knowledge? I think that if you can look at it from those lenses, sometimes you're passing up really good people that may not be, the perfect candidate on paper.
What if you really could have it all? Leadership, family, impact, all before the age of 40? Well, our guest today is Kash Rocheleau. She is the former CFO and now current CEO of Icon Foods. And she is breaking barriers in a male dominated industry and redefining what it means to lead well. And she has a passion for unlocking potential in unconventional talent. She's proving that success doesn't come from checking boxes, and it comes from using your voice when it matters. And so I'm really excited to have her here. Kash, welcome to the Leaders of Transformation.
Thank you so much for having me.
It is a pleasure. And before we go any further, I always like to do a shout out to those that support this show. And so a shout out to the expert bookers for making this connection. So thank you so much for that. I love everyone and appreciate everyone who supports this show. That's our audience, of course, but also all the amazing booking agents that send us amazing guests, and it makes such a difference. So, all right, well, let's talk about Kash. Kind of like, how did you get to where you are today? Because I know it wasn't the path that you had intended for yourself. So.
No, I grew up like just dreaming about being a mom. And when I got married at a very young age, we started trying pretty quickly after, and we hit quite a few roadblocks with infertility, miscarriages, stillbirths. And when we finally had my first, I was awarded the opportunity to stay home, and I hated it. I loved being a mom. I loved the fulfillment of, bringing life into the world and sustaining that life, but it being my whole definition, the reason I got out of bed, I didn't love it. So I powered through for about 7 months, and my husband came home. He was working in a very extroverted industry. And so he would come home working, talking to people all day long, and I would come home not communicating with people all day long. And there was this barrier of he needed a break and some quiet and peace, and I needed that cup filled of like human interaction, adult interaction. Um, and I finally just broke down. It was like, I just need to go back to work. The funny thing was he was like, well, do it. You kind of felt like he got hit out of nowhere. And so I started looking. I had a bachelor's. It was a very general business degree. And Icon Foods, who I'm currently with, was looking for an executive assistant to the CFO. And my mindset at that point was, well, if I can run a household where I'm keeping a husband on track, if I am keeping a 7-month-old baby alive, like how hard could it be to, keep a department operating and running in the right direction? And I jumped with both feet in, and I had a great mentor in the CFO seat when I came in, who was not a person to kind of keep things close to the vest. She was willing to explain every answer to the questions I had. She never made me feel like an idiot for the questions that I had, and was willing to take me along any journey that I asked to go on. And so I really fell in love with the finance side of things and ultimately the industry. And I took those questions and curiosity throughout the business in the organization, and then ultimately out into the industry. Um, so long answer. I didn't feel fulfillment in being a stay-at-home mom only.
Yeah. Well, I think there's this stereotype that as women, we're given this stereotype even when we're very young, that to grow up and have a family and stay at home and some women absolutely love that. Like my
Mhm,
sister-in-law she's a grandma now, but she was an amazing mom and she stayed home and awesome. But others, it's like, yeah, it's not, doesn't have everything that we want more than that. And so
mhm,
now you have three kids
mhm.
and you, last night, one of your children was not feeling well. And so that's kind of part of life, right? It's like
Yeah.
we were just talking about prior to this. So, how do you manage all of the things? Because obviously, I mean, you went through the ranks. You said you were an assistant, you became the CFO, and you became the CEO. And so the responsibilities increased with that. And as this is happening, and you're quite young, so you're, I think, the youngest CEO or one of the youngest CEOs in that probably that industry. And
Mhm,
so and your family's growing at the same time. So it's
mhm.
like how do you manage all of that and still kind of stay grounded and being able to be bring your best every day?
With a lot of grace, I would say a lot of grace for myself, but also the grace that the people around me provide. I try to be where my feet are. It's not always easy. I certainly don't do it perfectly, but you know, instances like last night when there's a 5-year-old that is, vomiting his guts up, whatever's going on in the business can wait. I have the right people in the place, and I need to trust that I have appointed those people to do their jobs to the best of their ability. And when I'm in that work moment, or emergencies arise in the business, it's leaning on my husband, right? Like he helped bring all three of these children into the world, and he's just as capable as I am. He's not probably going to cuddle the way I do or feed the same meals that I do, but ultimately, our interest is to raise three good humans that are going to grow up and live out lives full of integrity, and morals and kindness. And when you kind of look at it through that lens and perspective in whatever area you're looking at, that all of these people, whether it's the business, the family, any other aspect of my life, that we all have a common goal. We all have the same purpose. It makes it easier to be able to step back and know that whatever area you're looking at is in good hands. And if you can't step away from the business because you feel like the people are going to burn it to the ground, or, my husband's going to let one of our children fall to pieces, then I'm probably not um, surrounding myself with the right people.
Yeah.
I would say that that's kind of the mindset. It's very simple. It's not always done perfectly, but knowing that I can't do it at 100%, I can't expect the people around me to do it at 100%. Perfect.
Well, that speaks to leadership. I mean, this podcast is all about leaders who create transformation. And, and so we can talk
Hmm.
about some of the transformative ways that you're actually leading, but it starts right here. What you're talking about is because so many leaders, I have experienced this, firsthand, that they have, it's almost like a deep seated insecurity, like a
Hmm.
need to be everything to everyone that really stems from that insecurity
Hmm.
of having to be needed and wanted and being valuable. And so when you release that and you say, you know what, and sometimes we do it out of like because we're forced, right? Like in your case, it's like
Hmm.
you don't have the option of doing it all because you wouldn't be able to do it all. Then it
Hmm.
forces you even to say, okay, I need to relinquish certain
Hmm.
things. I need to trust my people, that they're going to do. I need to trust my husband that he's going to do the right thing.
Hmm.
And so that's leadership. And so talk a little bit about your leadership style. And, you mentioned about the way that you were mentored and what
Mhm.
you learned from that. And I know that so often the greatest, most effective people in specific roles didn't have all the qualifications, didn't have
Mhm.
all this. So you have this ability to identify talent, discover talent in people that don't have all of the qualifications. And I think that's all kind of ties into this idea of being able to trust people. Talk a little bit about your perspective on that and how you learn.
Yeah, for me, I again, it's probably a little ego. I always like try to look at myself, right? I I'm afforded the opportunity to be a CEO of a $30 million business, right? And it's a small business within the industry, but a $30 million business is huge. But if I look at myself in, one of the billion-dollar businesses within our industry, would I have been awarded the same opportunities? No. And it's not a dig at me. It's not a dig at any of the people that are holding those positions. It's just you're climbing a ladder with a lot of people above you that have qualifications, that have tenure, that have proven themselves within the circles that they run. And I I I took the opportunities that were given to me, whether I was the right person on paper or not. I think that my ability to stay curious and push the boundaries in if I'm thrown into the ocean, I'm gonna fight. I'm gonna fight to not sink. There's times that I have, and that's okay. I've learned more in those sinking moments than staying above water. But I look at it as a responsibility for me to give back to those people. And we have so many amazing people within our organization, but also within the industry that are not going to have the same opportunities. And I can't save all of the people as much as I want to or award those same opportunities. I think for me, it's the small opportunities, the small changes that I can make a bigger impact on those people and make a lasting, um, I guess, legacy, if you will. But I think that if we could look beyond what is on paper. And as leaders, I think it's so ingrained in us. And like, have they been a controller? Have they been a CFO? Have they been in the industry for 10 years? Have they, you know, received their CPA license? Is that person more qualified than maybe me, who has had to like go through true grit and like real life experience to get the same knowledge? I think that if you can look at it from those lenses, sometimes you're passing up really good people that may not be, the perfect candidate on paper. And so for me, it hasn't always worked out, but I find it such a big responsibility to give those opportunities when I can and let them shine. In my situation, I was not always given the tools, right? Like I had a great mentor that was willing to answer the questions that would point me in the right direction, but she didn't just hand me spreadsheets that she did. She's like, this is the goal. Figure out how to get there. And if you fail or succeed, we'll go through it on the other end. And that was one of the most powerful pieces of leadership that I've carried with me because I had to get dirty in the process and really figure out what worked for me. And um, there's people that work for me that love that. There's people that hate it. But the people that love it seem to take those lessons and run with them and have done much bigger things than I could have ever dreamed of, or maybe they even thought were possible.
Well, you're teaching them how to think, right? And
Hmm.
so much of, unfortunately, school, it seems like, is about memorization,
Hmm.
learning content, learning that, a certain way to do things. And in the real world, you get out there and it's like, okay, I want you to figure this out. I want you to
Hmm.
learn. I want you to grow. And not all organizations are like that. A lot of them are actually like, I want you to do it this way. And so it's all just about um, executing, doing the same thing so you're kind of told how to do it, what to do, and by
Hmm.
when. but to be able to teach people how to think and to reason, and that's where the innovation comes from. Maybe
Mhm.
talk about that because you're in an innovative industry, and so it's like, where that innovation comes from, because you're not just repeating. It's not just rinse and repeat. It's like, hey, wow, how did you come up with that? Oh my gosh, like
Yeah.
that's fantastic. I wouldn't have thought that.
Yeah, we certainly are in a very innovative industry, and I would say more so the last 6 months with some of the administration changes, it has forced a lot of people to be more creative than maybe they're accustomed to. I also think that the addition of all of the technology, which is great, it's kind of a double-edged sword. Um, it kind of kills creativity. And so when I instill these traits into my people, like you're gonna fail, and that's okay. Please do. You're gonna learn something from it. And the people that I've seen that I've had even an opportunity to have a slight impact on, they have said that that creativity, that innovative side is something that has gotten them to where they are because everyone around them is going to AI or, going to Google or following the process from A to B. And so in our industry, you have to be creative or you're not going to survive. We're seeing a lot of big manufacturing companies, big brands that are probably in every cupboard of anyone listening to this podcast are kind of pigeonholed because they don't know what to do with, dyes being banned or sugars being targeted. They don't know how to pivot. And I think that it comes down to a bigger foundational issue in were they awarded that creativity when they entered their career? And if they're not, how do you break that mold? It's kind of like telling me or you to stop drinking coffee after we've done it for 25 years, right?
Yeah.
It's trying to break habits that are so instilled in us. And so, whether it's the food industry, the tech industry, or all of the other industries that are listening, I think that you have to stay um, in a creative mindset in some facet of your day, whether it's in your work or your personal life. You have to keep that portion of your brain active to be successful.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I think even like you said, even at home, I just came back from a retreat, and the woman who is a client of mine who facilitated it,
Mhm.
she prepared the food, she planned all of the meals out, and there was such a vibrancy in color and
Mhm.
like just variety of food. I was like, wow, this is amazing. And if we take that and we apply that to life, about not just doing it black and white, but in color,
Mhm.
thinking in color, dreaming in color. And again, transformation, right? Leaders who create transformation, it's like transformation is not doing the same thing over and over again. It's not even slight changes. It is about transforming something into a complete, it's like a metamorphosis into something else.
Mhm.
And so we've got to live in that color. I think that's really important. Talk about the qualities that you look for. So you mentioned about if we can do this early on in people's career, like
Mhm.
you're young. I don't know if that means that you attract young people to your organization that want to work for somebody that's a role model for them or not. Maybe,
Mhm.
but just, like, what are the qualities, and as they enter their workforce, that that you're looking for.
Mhm. Yeah, I would say the first one is, growth mindset. It's a core value for our company. It's also a core value for me. I'm going to give away one of my secrets. So, my first interview question to anyone, it doesn't matter what position they're interviewing within our company, is what do you do on a Saturday or Sunday morning? And that tells me so much about that person. I mean, just that one simple answer, and it typically catches them off guard. But what I'm looking for is if I hear someone say, I sleep in, or, um, I Netflix and chill, is probably not the person that I want because they're accustomed to a slower paced lifestyle, or the grind of the week is really going to catch up to them. And it doesn't have to be an extravagant answer, but I'm looking for someone that, you know, we only have one life to live. So I believe.
Yes.
Um, we only get this life, and our time is so limited. And I find that as I'm getting older, that it goes so much faster than we believe. But there is a time for rest. I do believe that. But if you are resting and Netflixing and chilling and sleeping in every Saturday and Sunday, what is passing you by? And I firmly believe that how you do anything is how you do everything. And so if you are, lackadaisy on Saturday and Sunday, you're not willing to explore, you're not willing to test the limits of what life has to offer you, then what are you going to do within my organization?
Yeah.
So that's typically my first question. And I'm looking for someone that wants to grow, right? Like someone that there's certainly an importance on someone that wants to come in and own a role, but what are they doing personally and professionally to grow themselves? Again, there's nothing wrong with Netflix. I certainly have my moments of Netflix and chill, but if I'm awarded an opportunity to sit down and read a book that's going to better me as a person, as a mom, as a leader, or turn on the creative side of my brain, I'm probably going to do that over Netflixing and chilling. And I tend to want to surround myself with people like that too, because they're going to challenge me in ways that I probably am not going to challenge myself. And the third thing that I'm looking for is someone that is willing to contribute in a team or a community, right? Like culture is such a big thing with the younger generation entering the workforce. Some of it I don't understand. Some of them I've had to become flexible with, but they need to be, they need the trait to want to be a part of something bigger than themselves, meaning that when they come into the workforce, I don't want to hear any of my employees say that's not in my job description, or you need to go talk to the other department. Like, we are all a team again with the same purpose, rowing in the same direction. And if you're not willing to pick up where there's a need, you're probably going to be the weakest link. And we're only as strong as our weakest link. So I'm looking for people that want to be a part of a community, that are growth oriented, and that are going to rise to the occasion of what life has to offer.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so well said. Women, ambitious young women, what would you say to them to help them accelerate their career growth?
I would piggyback on exactly what I just said. When I came in, I came in the accounting and finance department, but the curiosity of wanting to know how everything operated, because, you know, we get so ingrained into these silos within an organization, big or small. I see it all the time. We get so stuck in these silos, and we don't realize that if you take one of those silos away, the business actually becomes weaker. It starts to crumble a little bit. And so as I started to move through the process of doing the very little things, going and getting forklift certified, spending time on our production line with our folks down there, going through the sales process with customers and showing our sales team that while we expect high things from you, we also are willing to do them and know how to do them. Um, and really seeing how all of the wheels kind of move together. I would say that women need to get out of their silo and run with the curiosity.
Mm.
I would also say that women are underrepresented. I'm one of the first ones to say that, but I would never tell a woman to leverage their gender for anything, right? I am typically one of the only women at most of the board tables I sit at. and it's a great representation, but I don't want to be there because I'm a woman. I don't want to be there because we need to diversify the table. I want to be there because I earned the right to be there. I want to be there because I'm qualified to be there. And I think that every woman should want that. You know, be there
Yeah.
because you earned it, be there because you're qualified, not because diversity says we should have a seat at the table. And I would also say that you don't need to be the loudest voice in the room. And this is a lesson that I had to learn hard. But as my time in the leadership seat has kind of carried on, my voice has gotten quieter, but my value has gotten higher, right?
Mhm.
So the things that I say are fewer and far between, but I see ears perk up. I see kind of eyes dial in when I do decide to speak up. And so I would say use your voice responsibly and and when you speak, do it with conviction. Like be bold and own what you have to say. Don't think about it or question. If you're going to say it and own it.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I love that you made that distinction about diversity because I know it's a big topic. And I get
Hmm.
a lot of guests that want to talk about, diversity and inclusion, equity,
Hmm.
all that in the workplace. And I think it is an important topic. But
Percent.
like you said though, it is you want to be there because you earned the right to be there. Like when I was starting out in business, I was in my teens and I had all these older men. They're like, "Oh, honey, that's just so cute. A woman in business. Let me take you out for lunch or dinner and maybe we'll have some drinks after and we'll talk about it." And I was just like,
Hmm.
"Really?" And but I could have gotten bitter
Hmm.
and say like, wow, this is just the way it is. But I was like, what is it going to take for them to take me seriously?
Hmm.
And that, though, because the quality of our life is determined by the quality of our questions largely, right? So it's like the
Hmm.
questions that we ask ourselves is like, wow, like how do I get taken seriously? What is it going to take for them to listen? And I love what you also said there. And so I was about my early to mid 20s where they were all like, "Oh, that's so cute." And then I'd open my mouth and I'd say something. They're like, "Well, she knows some stuff. Okay." And it was like, and then I got their attention. To your point about saying less, I was going to ask you about that. So I'm so glad you picked it. You shared that because this idea of not saying in the world that we live in right now with social media, there's so much
Hmm.
out there about being an influencer and getting your message out there and speaking your mind and your voice and all of that. And it doesn't necessarily always serve to, it's like you need that visibility. I always say to my clients, I always say, in order to grow your business, yeah, you need visibility, credibility, and consistency,
Hmm.
right? So, but that visibility isn't necessarily yelling from the rooftops, how amazing you are. And so, as you just to kind of like go a layer deeper with that, just for a moment, is that how do you balance between the not being visible or being unknown, unseen, right?
Hmm.
Because there's a lot of women and men, I'm sure as well, that feel kind of unseen, overlooked,
Hmm.
and they aren't like it's like their supervisors or whoever it is that's higher up doesn't actually recognize what they
Hmm.
have to bring to the table, versus being out there and actually saying too much. Like where's that?
Hmm.
How do they know the line? How to when's the right time to speak
That's
up?
a good that's a good question. I think that to your point, you kind of have to look in and ask yourself the hard questions. Like, what is your purpose? For me, it's not about being seen. Like for me, I could sit at 7,000 boardroom tables, and if I'm only seen at one of them, it's really not going to affect my ego. What is important to me is that females or males doesn't matter to me, but specifically females, that they see that they have the opportunity, right? Um, and I say opportunity carefully because I don't want anyone comparing themselves, to me. Like, she's almost 40 and she's climbed this. Like, that doesn't have to be their goal. Don't compare yourself to me. I'm on a different path than you. But I would say, what is your goal? My goal is to show that these young females have the opportunity. The only ceiling above them is the one that they put over themselves. And when it comes to um, not being seen, I would challenge again to go a little deeper, right? Because I think that we always, as humans, not always, we have a tendency to look through things with negative intent. It's just naturally put into us, right? Like, someone flies past me on the freeway. It's like, where the F are they going? And I want to throw up some fingers, but I don't know, like, right? The negative intent just instantly creeps in. Maybe their mom just got into a car accident and is life flighted to the emergency. I don't know, but that's not the first thing that comes into my mind. And so I would say in business, try to take a step back and look through things with positive intent, right? Does your manager really not see you? You did this project and it went to the boardroom that maybe you didn't get a seat at the table. How do you know that you didn't get credit for that? I think instantly we want to say, like, I did this for them. But I I would I would challenge whoever it is to take a step back and ask the question, what is their goal? And to try to look at the situation through the lens of positive intent. I would say to those that have done that and still feel like they're being overlooked and um, not being seen, I would look at your options because there's always options. And I have conversations with colleagues all the time, like, oh, I've been here for 10 years. I really love what I do. I feel stuck. I don't feel like I could move to this company. Why? Because you have to start over. I mean, so I would say that a lot of times when we think we're being overlooked, some of it is relevant and we are, but I would say try to look at it through another lens.
Mm, yeah, well said. And it makes me think that like sometimes it's our perception, right? Perception is projection. And so
Yeah.
sometimes like I'm feeling overlooked and it's like, well, where are you overlooking you
Hmm.
and putting that out there? And so that positive intent versus even like offense, right?
Hmm.
People get offended so easily. And so I think that's such great, great advice. As we wrap up here, what did we not talk about that we should have talked about? I know there's so many different things, even like Icon Foods. So for those that do not know Icon Foods and what you do, maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So Icon Foods is a ingredient manufacturer. We've been around for about 25 years and we specialize in clean label sugar reduction. So we work mostly with businesses, so mostly B2B, who are either looking to reduce, eliminate, or ultimately create a product that is low or no sugar using natural ingredients. So with our current administration changes, it's becoming pretty relevant, especially with the generation that's entering the dominance of consumer purchases. What's important to them is certainly what we offer. So you can visit the website if you're intrigued at all. But yeah, we work with natural sweeteners and companies that are looking to produce things that go on the shelves for consumers.
Which is exciting because as somebody who I have a very much a sensitivity to um, chemicals and different things,
Mhm.
and certainly all of the artificial sweeteners. None of that goes over well with me. And so, if anything, it's like I'm gonna have real sugar or some of these alternatives that are that much.
Mhm.
We were talking about like monk fruit and
Mhm.
allulose and stevia and all these different ones. So that is wonderful to see that more and more of that is happening, more and more of that. And again, that's like we were talking about earlier, is not just the same old rinse and repeat. It's actually doing things differently and saying, what if we just like got out of the box and eliminated the box and just said, hey, what's
Mhm.
possible here? And so that is exciting that you guys are doing that. And that industry is growing so rapidly. Um, Actually, let's talk about AI real briefly because you hinted on it earlier.
Mhm.
Speaking of boxes, it can put you in a box and
Mhm.
limit you, but it can also be used as a tremendous tool. So how do
Mhm.
you use it as that tremendous tool that it carries that potential?
I think that, you know, the idea around AI is so interesting because it seems like such a new topic, but um, we've been using calculators for how long? That's in a sense AI. I don't know about you, but I have been using Hey Siri for quite some time, and that's a sense of AI. I think where things have gotten a little curious is, the likes of ChatGPT and um, Claude and all of these now new tools that are coming out. I think that building foundations or trying to get an idea generated is a great way to use it. We certainly don't have a reason to send a poorly written anything, right? Like you now have grammar correct, you have tone correct, you have punctuation correct at your fingertips. So there's literally no excuse to get a poorly written email, letter, text, anything. Where I have a lot of hesitation is the people that, again, are becoming so reliant on it. I think that it's taking away um, the ability for us to think for ourselves and be creative. Specifically in our industry, I'm awarded the opportunity to speak with a lot of editors and a lot of publications within our industry. And I actually don't use it at all for any of that outside of like punctuation and grammar because it's only as good as what you feed into it or what others feed into it. And um, at what point do you put something in, have something generated, and then send that off as authentically or originally yours, and that editor gets verbatim the same thing from someone else? Is that plagiarism? It certainly is going to destroy your credibility. So it's a little iffy. I do allow it within our organization with the limitations of grammar, punctuation, um, and building a framework, but I do not allow it for um, finalized pieces that go out to anyone.
So I had a guest on that consistent to what you were talking about. He wrote a book called Sawyer Think, and it was
Mhm.
Kurt Avery, uh, founder and CEO of Sawyer Products, and he said the same thing. He says, "Get off your phone if you want to
Mhm.
grow. Get off your phone. Get off ChatGPT and all this, and think for yourself. Stop using GPS."
Mhm.
To even just like simply for that. I mean, look, when I moved to LA from Toronto, Toronto's on a grid and I mean, you can't get lost. I mean, really,
Yeah.
north, south, east, west, right? You get moved to LA, there's streets that say west, but they don't go west, they go north or
Mhm.
something, right? So it was like, okay, I need a GPS to figure out and traffic and so forth. But we have become so reliant on these tools that we
Mhm.
actually stop thinking. And then to your point about the originality, the innovation,
Mhm.
and the transformation, it's so important. So a tool, not a crutch, is what I'm hearing. And so, yeah.
100%. And I would say, just to piggyback on your previous guest, get off your phone. Like and I see it with my kids. My oldest is a he was COVID hit when he was in kindergarten. So we're
Mm.
seeing some of the ramifications of that. But when I see kids that can't entertain a conversation with another kid because there's a phone or a screen, but they can play a game with headphones and microphones. Uh, yeah, get off of your phone. The people in this world can be very frustrating, but they're also so amazing. And if we could just put the phone away and have a good, honest conversation, we would learn so much about ourselves, about other people, about the world, and maybe become a little more kinder and compassionate.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. Agreed. Well, Cash, thank you so much for being here and spending some time with us and sharing, peeling back the layer a little bit, the curtain, and sharing a little bit about even your secret for your interview, for your first question there. So hopefully, none of your candidates are going to hear this before the interview, only after, and so that won't mess up your strategy there. But thank you so much. It has been such a pleasure, and I'm going to encourage our listeners to go to iconfoods.com. We'll make sure that's in the show notes, as well as your LinkedIn if they want to learn more about you and follow you, just even as an example of someone that they can model after. We'll make sure that all that information is there. They can get connected to you. And I always say that leaders of transformation take action. You can listen to podcasts, you can read books, you can do all this, and it's all theory until you put it into action. And so I would encourage you today that if there's something that really stood out for you, maybe going back and re-listening to it if you need to, but it was something that really stood out for you. Maybe it's that last point about just getting off your phone and starting to think for yourself. Maybe it's not trying to prove yourself to others. Being in the meeting and being the loudest voice is not necessarily the best choice. And to be thoughtful about what you say, that when you say it, that it makes an impact. And leading well. There's so much that we talked about here today. So I just encourage you to do that. We'd love to hear your stories, how this has impacted you. You can go on leadersoftransformation.com and find us, of course, all over social as well. We'd love to hear from you. And again, thank you so much. And we'll look forward to seeing you next time on the Leaders of Transformation.